Well, hello and welcome to another video about Power BI. This time we'd like to dive into ranking. And our goal here is that within my current table structure, I have three tables. I have an employees table, an orders table, and my last one is a suppliers table. And what I want to do is I want to rank my employees based on their sales. And actually I would like to only see the top 3 employees, and then all the other employees should be grouped in others. So how can we achieve this? Let's actually first explore the dataset. So if I take my employee name, so I take this, I can see all the employees I have, which are these ones. And now if I take a look at my orders, within my orders I also have here a sales measure, which is called total sales, which by the way, if I tick it, just that you see what the expression is, it's simply a sum x on the orders table based on the sales column. So of course you could also use the sum function here because we're only referring to one specific column in one table. So no related table, so that's why you do not necessarily need an iterator. And also my table set is really small, so it doesn't matter whether I'm using the sum function or sum x function. So the iterator is not really slower than the other function. So if we take a look at the different sales figures for our employees, we can see that in total we got 1.344 million in sales, which is exactly the same number as here. So we know it's correct. It's displaying all the sales. Here it's for the countries, but here it's specific for the different kinds of employees we have. And let me also increase this from the size. So if I go to the formatting options here and go to the values section and actually put here a 15, so you can see that better on your screens. Okay, so here we go. So here currently we see the employees. And if we hover over the total sales, we can easily sort this ascending or descending. If you take it once, it's ascending. If you take it twice, it would be descending. And the third time, you would get the default sorting again. So here we can see that Margaret actually created the most amount of sales. Then it was Janet and then Nancy. So obviously the women are in control here. So Andrew is then the next one. So far so good. Okay. And our goal now is that we want to display those 3 with their sales numbers, but then all the others, starting from Andrew up to Stephen, all those should be grouped into the other category, the other bucket. And of course we would also like to see then the sum of those sales for those specific others. So how can we achieve this? So in our employees table, and by the way, this employees table here is a dimension table. Just want to mention that. So if I right click on an employees table here, I can say I'd like to create a new column. Why not a measure? Well, we need a column because I'd like to have this actually in the table here like this in the structure. So in this case, I'm going with a new column option, which is, by the way, the same as if you go to the data view and then create the new column from there. It's also possible. Or, as you can see here under the table tools, there's also an option to create next to new measure and quick measure. There's also this new column option, as well as a new table, if you would like to create a complete new table. But for us now, I right click on the employees table and then I say I'd like to create a new column. So take a new column. Here we go, there's the column. And because we would like to go with the ranking, we use the rank x function, which is an iterator function over a table, which allows us to rank a specific table based on a number. So here it's let's say this will be our ranking. Let's say ranking column. And of course you can name this whatever you like. Is equal to. And here I'd like to use variables. Variables are quite efficient in Power BI and in DAX because they're only evaluated one time. So that means that if you want to refer to them several times in your measure, which you create here, they are only evaluated once, which means it's better for performance. So Power BI or DAX is not required to evaluate it multiple times, which might save some time, depending on your model size. Variables are only evaluated one time. Also, please keep this in mind, because it could also be an issue. Because you're not able to change then the evaluation afterwards. So you can't put it, for instance, in a calculate function and then try to change it. This won't work. So just keep this in mind. So let's go with that. The variable means that we need to define the var keyword. And let's say this variable is, let's say, the ranking var is equal to. And now I say I want to use my rank x function, rank x. Now I need to give it a table. And because I want to make sure that I ignore any kind of filters, I would go with the all function here, all. And then I need an employees in my table, employees table. Okay, so far so good. I could also refer to column name here, but here I'd like to go with the complete table. Also, this works because the employees table itself is really small. So it's also not a performance issue here. Just wanted to mention that. So if I select all employees here in my ranking, then I need to give it an expression, which will be my total sales. That's why I created it. So I can use this measure here. I also like to use the values here, which again is total sales, like that. And then the order itself is descending, because I'd like to actually start with the highest amount of sales, right? And for ties, you could specify it with dense or skip. That would be interesting if you know or are quite certain that you have employees with the exact same amount of sales. Now, I know that that's not the fact here. That's why I can skip this and don't need to any skip, meaning I don't use dense as well as I don't use skip. I just put nothing in here. So we got the variable created, and whenever you use variables, you also need to use the return keyword. That's compulsory. So that's why we say return here. And let me go to new line, just to maybe adjust here a little bit the formatting. And then I say for the return keyword here, with an if condition. So if the ranking var, which we defined, ranking, there it is, the xy means we are referring to the variable. So if the ranking var is less or equal to, let's say 3, because I like to see the top 3 here, then in this case we would like to display the employee, in this case the employee name, and otherwise we'd like to also display others. Of course you can name this whatever you like, but now I keep it with others. Then I can close this and we are good to go. So that's the expression we're going to use as a column. Now if I press enter to validate it, we can see that the ranking column has been created. We can see the FX symbol as well as the little table which notifies us that this specific is a calculate column. Like the calculator tells us here, for instance, that this is a measure. So let's actually check this in comparison. So let me actually make this maybe smaller and drag it to the side, and Control C to copy it, Control V to paste it. Let's do that, Control C, Control V. Okay, so we got it twice. So I just wanted to keep the formatting, so for the size. And then instead of having actually this ranking, or let's actually put this maybe also inside here, go with the ranking here, next to the employees here. And now we can see exactly the specific behavior we have, right? So we can see Margaret, Janet, and Nancy, we can still see the names, but for all the others, we can see this other category. And of course, if we get rid of the employee name as our first attribute here, if we remove this, then by default, we can see that now we get Margaret, Janet, and Nancy, and then others. Of course, others in total is now the most amount, the highest amount of sales. That's why it's on top here. But we can easily see that now we have created the ranking and grouped our others in this specific category. And of course, this is dynamic, right? So we have this exactly with a calculation instead of doing it by simply creating a bin, for instance, which we don't want, right? Okay. So that's it actually for this ranking. So hopefully that was interesting to you. As always, thanks a lot for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Until then, best guys.